Happy Labor Day weekend, or happy Labor Day. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kennedy, and here today on the virtual couch, we've got Fox News correspondent Molly Line, pollster Kristen Soltis Anderson, syndicated radio host Leslie Marshall, and we've got Executive Vice President of the King's College in Manhattan, Brian Brenberg. Welcome, everyone. All had bad nights, all weekly run by radical left Democrat governors and mayors. Get the picture? So, Leslie, what do you have to say about that in terms of Republicans framing this as a Democrat problem in Democrat-run cities and states like Portland, where progressive mayors are despised for not being progressive enough?
Well, you have to look, if you're looking at a campaign and advising them, at numbers. Support since June, when it peaked for Black Lives Matter, it has dropped. We see more people seeing that, protests could lead to violence, and that's a concern. But the numbers that I really want to see right now are, you still have a neck and neck race. Yes, Democrats certainly could be worried this goes somewhere, but right now it isn't. Number 1, 2, and 3 on voters' minds are unemployment, health care, and the economy. Even though racial injustice, the rioting, the looting, the protest are a concern, it's not top of mind for voters yet, and they're still looking at the numbers. If you look at Quinnipiac, for example, they trust Joe Biden to handle a crisis much more than Donald Trump. They want to come together more than have law and order at this point in time. More than Donald Trump. The needle hasn't really helped the president or the former vice president right now. Certainly that could change. But at this moment, all of these protests, the rioting, the burning, the looting, it's not moving the needle much among voters in these polls right now.
Well, as the Trump and Biden teams kick off a busy week of campaigning in key swing states, Senator Bernie Sanders, there he is, he's the latest on the left, to warn that President Trump may refuse to leave the White House if he loses re-election. Sure. So speaking of Hillary, Leslie, Hillary Clinton told Joe Biden, whatever you do, don't concede. So isn't
she actually within context she did, but she was talking if the race is close, and I get her point, and I think that's actually what the president is using here on our own network with Chris Wallace when he was asked if he was going to do exactly what Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, and now Senator Bernie Sanders have accused him of. He said he'd have to see. He's not saying yes, he's not saying no. Look, he's laying the groundwork for fraudulent ballots with a large mail-in voting population. He's also talked about a rigged election. The only way my side, the Democrats, would win is if it's rigged, it's stolen from them, it's fraudulent.
That's the
I agree with Molly's
language.
Point. This
That's
is
exactly
helpful
the language
on both
that Bernie
sides
Sanders
to get people to vote.
President Trump taking a fresh swipe at House Speaker Nancy Pelosi over her visit to a San Francisco hair salon that was shut down due to the coronavirus restrictions. He suggests it shows Democrats can't lead. Quote, Nancy Pelosi said she got set up by the owner, a very good one, of a beauty parlor. If so, how will she do in negotiations against President Xi of China, President Putin of Russia, or Kim Jong-un of North Korea? Not so well, I suspect, but far better than Joe Biden would do. Now, Pelosi's office says she didn't know that she was doing anything wrong at that salon. Leslie, bringing you in on this, do Americans really care about this as an issue, what Nancy Pelosi does with her hair, but do they care about Nancy Pelosi and whether she endorses or not? We just had a race here in Massachusetts, the Senate race, where she endorsed the Kennedy in Massachusetts, who then went on to lose. Connor Lamb, Southwest Pennsylvania, those are entirely different kinds of Democrats down there. He said he wouldn't be voting for her for Speaker of the House. Does it matter that much? Is she a power player as we head into this next election? And is this the type of issue that's going to matter to Democrats out there?
One, she is a power player. Two, this is not the type of issue that's going to really matter to Democrats. Look, as a Democrat, I think this was a bad decision. Clearly, she should have been wearing her mask. But I have to say, living here in Southern California, there are a lot of salons that are closed. And if you peek behind the newspapers, there are people inside, or people doing hair in the backyard or on sidewalks. Just drive down the street and you can see it. Look, you can't say, first of all, this is a state issue. This is Gavin Newsom's decision, not hers. This jurisdiction in Alameda and San Francisco counties don't come under her authority. However, as House Speaker, I always believe, I don't care what party you're with, you need to lead by example. Wear your mask, don't try and make exceptions. Salon owner won't be bankrupt. They've raised over $100,000 for her to move to Montana someplace because she wants out of San Francisco. But at the end of the day, this is not going to stop Nancy Pelosi's ability to negotiate with tough leaders, even Donald Trump. She's done some great negotiating with him in the past. He's even complimented her on that in the past. And at the end of the day, this is not going to stop a Democrat from voting for her, certainly. And I don't think it's going to make somebody who's undecided walk away. It's a good thing that we laugh at, and she's certainly not trying to make a fur coat out of little Dalmatian puppies' fur.
Democratic VP nominee Kamala Harris meeting with Jacob Blake's family at an airport in Wisconsin right now as protests continue over the police shooting that left him paralyzed. It comes as the Biden team says it's looking to win over 4 key groups of voters that helped President Trump beat Hillary Clinton in 2016. Disaffected voters, independents, suburbanites, and seniors. All right, so let's take this apart a little bit, Leslie Marshall. We have seen suburban women sort of flee from President Trump, but what about some older voters, these golden Americans? They really have one of their own who's going to be president. So how does Joe Biden have the octogenarian edge?
Well, a couple of things. We do see in the polls, not the flight that we saw as seriously, just month after month from the Turnt campaign by suburban women, suburban female voters, but we're seeing that erosion with seniors, and we're seeing that erosion in a group that really made the difference in 2016 to have Hillary Clinton lose and Donald Trump win, and that is the working class, specifically young white working class voters. Hillary Clinton pretty much ignored this segment of the population. Joe Biden cannot afford to ignore this segment. In my opinion, he should visit every battleground state. They should focus not just on these 4, but heavily on that working class and specifically that young white working class voter. With regard to your question, Kennedy, healthcare is a big issue. Coronavirus, obviously, as you have infants who can be more susceptible, certainly the older population is more susceptible. We've seen that internationally, that older people have a higher fatality rate when infected by COVID-19 because they have a lot more respiratory issues, pneumococcal pneumonia, for example. And some of these people are very frightened by that, and not just healthcare and the cost to their life and their health, their physical body, but their cost to them, their pocketbook. So I think that's an area where Joe Biden has an edge on the president, especially in light of the numbers that we're still seeing with COVID in our country.
Joe Biden also getting some unlikely support, an unlikely ally, Anita Hill, who accused Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment nearly 3 decades ago. She says she's voting for Biden this November, despite their rather, complicated history. Now, Hill is among those who've criticized Biden for the way that she was treated in the Thomas confirmation hearings, which then Senator Biden chaired. He has since expressed regret for that. Leslie, what do you think? Does this hurt in any way?
No, absolutely not. It doesn't help in any way either. Endorsements rarely do. This is not a big surprise. I agree with you there, Molly. Basically, she's looking at these are the 2 candidates. She would have to vote for one that she would work with. And you have to remember that although it wasn't satisfying for her necessarily, Joe Biden did call and apologize to her. And the Violence Against Women Act has definitely given Joe Biden some points. Maybe it's given him points with Anita Hill, but that endorsement from Anita Hill is not going to give him any points in the form of votes in November, nor take them away.
A 12-year-old boy in Colorado reportedly got a 5-day suspension after a teacher says he flashed a toy gun during an online art class. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office says the teacher believed it was just a toy, but authorities still went to the boy's house for a welfare check without notifying his parents. His mother tells the local Fox station, quote, "For them to go as extreme as suspending him for 5 days, sending the police out, having the police threaten to press charges against him because they want to compare the virtual environment to the actual in-school environment is insane." The school district refusing to apologize, issuing this statement. "We take the safety of all our students and staff very seriously. Safety is always our #1 priority. Not much humorous about this. You want to be able to laugh that somebody could get kicked out of school for having a toy in their own house. But Curtis Elliott, the father, said of his son, he was just in tears. He was scared. We were all scared. I literally was scared for his life. Here's a little bit more of that quote. The virtual setting is not the same as the school setting. He did not take the toy gun to school. He's in the comfort of his own home. It's a toy. You know, Leslie, your thoughts on this? A toy. Do you think that the school took this too far?
Well, there's a few moving parts here, and you kind of clump it together. I have a 12 and 13-year-old who are doing virtual online schooling, so I certainly get this from the position of the parent, and I do agree with Brian that parents need to be notified. The school has a policy, and you can look it up online. Their policy is to call the police when there's an incident. Their policy is while they're virtually learning online, because they're hoping, as most schools are, to have the children come back to school in person, that they are keeping the laws that are set by the school board. And calling the police is one of those. The police chose to go out. The teacher didn't ask them to go out. The teacher was very specific that this was a toy gun. There was a second boy in the room who allegedly got 5 days suspension as well, who picked up the gun, pointed it at the screen, pulled the trigger, and there were complaints from some other students' parents who were frightened by that. And of course, the police felt maybe we need to check this out. I think 5 days is too much. I don't think 1 day is wrong. Yes, this was a toy, and thank God, but what if it hadn't been? And I think that the police did the right thing to make sure the children were okay, but the parents should have been called by both the school and the police.